Hey there. Are you ready to take your expertise in sports medicine to the next level? Join us for the 2025 Sports Medicine Symposium, proudly presented by Norton Sports Health and Court Physical Therapy. This symposium covers hot topics in sports medicine, an active lab, including a lab on treating equestrian riders. Continuing education credits are available for physicians, advanced practice providers, nurses, athletic trainers, and physical therapists. You can join us on Friday, March 21st and 22nd, 2025. Those able to join us in person will be hosting the symposium in the legendary Millionaires Row at the world-renowned Churchill Downs. Can't attend in person? Join us virtually, live. Don't miss this chance to network, learn, and grow. Register today at nortoncme.com. That's NORTONCME.com. I will see you at the 2025 Sports Medicine Symposium.
Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More, the podcast that gives you a viewpoint on sports medicine that can't be found anywhere else. I'm your host, Eli Howard, and we have a fantastic show ahead of us today. So let's get started. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. Today, we have a co-host, Victoria Chavez. How you doing, Victoria? Welcome back.
Hi, Eli. Thanks for having me again.
And our guest today is someone I've watched grow in the profession for several years, and kind of been fun to watch him fly through the positions and locations and get to where he's at now, which is a college near and dear to my heart. And that is assistant professor at Fresno State University, Christopher Ludwig. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, Eli. I'm excited to talk to y'all.
I've been looking forward to it. I'm glad we're finally able to connect and get this rolling. So let's have some fun. This is going to be a fun conversation, I think, today.
I agree.
First off, why don't you tell our listeners who you are, where you're from, and how you got where you're at right now?
I hope this podcast is like 3 hours long. I got quite the path.
Let's give the Cliff Notes.
I love it. I'm a California kid, born and raised. Parents grew up on ranches and almonds and cattle. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was a below average student athlete in high school and went to community college. On the reference of my mother, she said, "Oh, this sports medicine class at Modesto Junior College looks intriguing." So I took it, and a gentleman by the name of Bob Boswell, retired athletic trainer, helped me find my path. And I've been all about sports medicine and athletic training since 1999. And I had no idea what an athletic trainer was before that. But I spent a couple years at the junior college, got roped into USA Wrestling, and traveled as a student, probably when I shouldn't have back in the day.
And back when you could. I remember those days.
Yeah, pre-accreditation.
Yep.
I wasn't a good enough student to apply to 5 or 6 schools. I didn't know any better. So I followed in Bob Boswell's footsteps and came to Fresno State. And I did my undergrad here. I say this story not to make this conversation longer, but when I came to Fresno State, being a small town, well, Modesto's not a small town, but a smaller town, a kid, and entering an athletic training program, a healthcare program, I didn't know what it was. So my time here as an undergrad student wasn't great. And I don't blame the program. I blame me for being emotionally immature, socially immature, and academically immature. And I struggled as a student, but I made it through the program, got certified a couple of months after I graduated, and took a job here locally at Clovis High School. And I realized—
Now, you say Clovis High School. That doesn't narrow it down. Which Clovis High School were you working at?
The Clovis High School.
The Clovis, the original Clovis High School. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. I realized quickly that I didn't know enough and I needed to go back to school. So I applied to, I think, 7 different graduate assistantships, ended up landing down at Cal State Fullerton. It changed my whole trajectory. I got to mature there. I got to grow as mentored by Dr. Robert Kersey and Julie Max and Chris Muma, and had some peers there that just really helped me develop. And when I graduated, I didn't know what field or what area in the field of athletic training I wanted to go, but I wanted to go back home. And there weren't a lot of job opportunities at the college level in Northern California. University of Pacific had a position, and it was 40% clinical athletic training, 60% academics. I never wanted to go into academia. I wanted to be a Division I college athletic trainer. But it was the best job that I could find that was back up north, and end up getting the job, and realized real quickly that athletics wanted 100% of my time, academics wanted 100% of my time, and I struggled with that balance. Met my girlfriend, then now my wife, why I started that job. And about 4 years in, I had to make a decision, either go full academics or transition to full-time clinical. And I chose academics and ended up doing my doctorate there. I was the clinical coordinator for the athletic training program for 6 years, and then the program director for 6 years at University of Pacific. And then it just became time to grow more and change. And Pacific had blessed me with a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth as a early professional. I decided to go to University of Idaho because I thought they were doing some really amazing work and had some contemporary academic evolution that I wasn't seeing in a lot of other programs. So I ended up going up to Moscow, Idaho for a little over 4 years, about 4 years. Unfortunately, I went there in December of 2019, and we all know what happened right after that. So
We got really good at Zoom, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, darn good.
It was an awesome transition for me because Idaho was an online hybrid program. So I had a semester and a half of teaching online there before we all had to switch. So Idaho was ahead of the game with the online hybrid programming. But those 4 years in Idaho, I will probably talk about it a ton through this conversation, but it was amazing. And I grew a ton, and eventually I ended up missing my nephews and my nieces and my parents. And we have the youngest granddaughter. So my parents had to travel to Idaho to visit her, which wasn't fair.
It's so hard to spoil a granddaughter if they're that far away. So, having heard that from my parents so many times.
And then Scott Saylor had called me and said they had a position open. I've always wanted to be back to be a Bulldog, and
The Scott Saylor called you.
Dr. Saylor, yeah,
Dr. Saylor, love it.
he's been a career-long mentor and a great friend. I couldn't ask for better professionals to guide me than I've had, from Julie Max to Robert Kersey, Bob Boswell, Chris Pond, Scott Saylor. I've been very blessed.
Wow, you're hitting Mount Rushmore of athletic trainers.
Made my way back to Fresno, and I told everybody when I moved to Idaho I would never come back, but I got about 18 years left in me, and before I look to early retire. So I'm here forever. I'm a Bulldog the rest of my career.
Well, that's how half my family looks at it. But they're, like I told you so many times, in the Fresno Clovis area, Bulldog for life. They've been howling that for years. I know that one all too well. But Victoria laughed a little bit. I saw her chuckling when you said, "Yeah, I'll never come back."
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Victoria?
Yes, but
I'll
this podcast isn't about me.
I'll never work at a high school.
Let's get back to Chris.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're interviewing Chris. Sorry about that, buddy. So, it's been a joy watching you grow into the colleague that you are now, and watching you develop. And, one of the things that I wanted to really get focused on and talking is, you kind of look outside the box when you're training these new incoming athletic trainers. And we think very much alike. Nothing is cookbook. Nothing is, here's the recipe, get it done. You got to look at what's going on and figure it out and realize, well, no two problems are the same. And we've had some fantastic discussions over time, but you had a comment at our CATA conference that I think, if we discuss correctly, after you said it, people stood up and walked out of your presentation.
Yeah.
What was that comment? I want to go there first. Let's talk about annoying people.
Yeah, I'm at the
And educating, excuse me. Annoying, but educating.
Educating is the most appropriate word. The word I like to use is provocate. I'm at a point in my career where I want to challenge the status quo. I want to be stimulating and maybe somewhat not offensive, but borderline. Like I want people to have to think about the things I say because that tends to perk people's ears up and get somebody a little rowdy and excited. So in the presentation, I presented on treating nervous system dysfunction, specifically the autonomic nervous system. And that's a pretty, I don't want to say contemporary topic, but in athletic training, we don't go in depth on how to assess autonomic nervous dysfunction or how to treat it after we've assessed it. So in part of the presentation, halfway through, oh, by the way, I started that presentation with a Kanye quote.
Oh, wonderful. Love that. Yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorite people in the world. Yeah, yeah.
I tried to think of the quote I started with. It was something about people think I ramble, but I really just have a symphony of ideas. And that's the way I wanted the presentation to be.
That might be the only quote I like from him. I might have to use that often now.
Halfway through, we were talking about evaluating the nervous system, and I put up on the slide provocative thought. And I said that the majority, I don't want to say the majority, there's a large part of our athletic training pool that are generalists. And they'll do a 5, 7, maybe a quick 10-minute evaluation, and then they just refer out. And I feel we're at the point where I'm developing practitioners, and for athletic trainers to be true clinicians, they should be looking to do thorough evaluations, 30, 45, 60-minute clinical evaluations. And a couple of the individuals towards the back middle looked red in the face, a little angry, and stood up. And one of them asked a question and said, "How is that possible for high school ATs?" And luckily, our moderator was a high school AT, and he stood up and said, I know what Chris is talking about, and I understand there's limitation of time, but maybe I do the evaluation in pieces, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, another 15 the next day. He's like, we have to be more thorough. Well, those 2 or 3 individuals were upset at that point. They just exited the room, and that's okay. That topic, it was brought up to stimulate discourse and to say that sometimes the old way is not the way the future is and the way that current practitioners need to practice. So I think it was provocative enough to get people to say, this guy's an idiot, I'm out of here. But for the most part, yeah.
I like it. I like it. I love, what was the word you used again? Provocative?
Provocate.
Provocate. I like that. I'll have to use that too, because Lord knows I've been known to do that before. No comments, Victoria. I see how it is. All right. Now, with that though, you're teaching this upcoming generation, and have been for a while, how to think outside the box and look at those different settings and take care of these new, I don't call them students, I call them patients, because that's really what they are. You're taking care of people. It doesn't matter if they play a sport, if they're on a team, they're patients. What do you tell these future professionals that is one of the most important things to get done?
Oh, that's a heavy question. There's a lot to unpack there for me because my mind initially goes to I'm really big into the neuroscience right now in our academic program, and I tell them that everything is the nervous system. So we always got to start and end with the nervous system. I think even before that, the term patient, that's something that's been provocative in our field. I mean, you talk to some of the traditional ATs or maybe the older generation of ATs that they have student athletes or they're athletes that they're treating. And I've had, being up in Idaho, we had a DAT program up there, and some of the students would challenge the faculty on saying patients. I remember a distinct conversation that I had with one of the faculty who debated a student about the term patients. It was a returning student, an older gentleman, and he had said, my Division I college athletes, they're athletes. They don't want to be called patients. It makes them feel like something's wrong with them. It changed my thought process a little bit, knowing your audience, the student body you work with, the patient population you work with. you might have to change that lingo. I mean, as an AT, I'm teaching our students that you're treating patients and they just happen to be athletic patients or athlete patients. We have to be cognizant of the people we're working with and the words we use and how it affects them. So I think on the administrative side, knowing that we have patients and we're treating humans that are all different and have a ton of variables is important, but also recognizing that if we're constantly calling them patients, that may make them feel a certain way too. So we have to be very, very open to the idea that our word selection with the patient population can mean different things. In our program here, Idaho, Pacific, Fullerton, all the programs that's tied to, we have used the word and we carry the word they're patients, just like nursing or PT or medicine. Like we are healthcare providers that are working with a population of people who need our assistance or need our help. Beyond the neuroscience conversation, the title of patient, athlete, patient, student, athlete, patient, I'd say 15 to 20% of my students that graduate from the last two programs I've been in have went in the industrial setting. And that's changed the way we teach content because it's a whole new patient demographic that we traditionally haven't taught to.
Yeah, totally.
So thinking about not just treating the 18-year-old high school athlete or the 20-year-old college athlete or the 25-year-old professional sport athlete, we now have the industrial athlete, and that's probably a place where they're more common to call them patients. But from the students that I've worked with, they like the title, the patients like the title industrial athlete. It makes them feel special. So that audience, that the demographic you're working with, the title of patient or student athlete, it's important to them. So we have to be aware of how we're using that term. Two other areas that I've been emphasizing the last, 6 years is primary care in athletic training. If you're on my social media feeds, I push it all the time that athletic training is primary care. I would argue that the two most important classes in athletic training education from a life-saving standpoint is the emergent care or the emergencies classes and a primary care or gen med class.
Yeah.
I mean, that content is going to save somebody's life. Knowing what an abnormal heart palpation is, or a GI, an absence of GI sound, or a nystagma of the eyes, or some really abnormal finding, you're going to save people's lives. But to me, the emphasis over the last 50 years has been on orthopedics. And we're good at being orthopedic assessors and treaters. Treaters isn't a word, but
don't worry about it. We'll have it coined next in Webster's.
So I personally feel that primary care is one of the two most important classes. And depending on your setting, you may have to deal with medications, you may not. But I think pharmacology is another area that we're seeing a lot of growth in from the standpoint of students have to know the biochemistry associated with the pathophysiology that they're seeing in their patients. And they should be familiar with the different types of insulins and the different type of GI meds. So I would say that's a big area of growth and contemporary topic.
And I'll totally agree with you with the gen med one, the primary care, because at the high school level, and obviously that's near and dear to my heart over the last 28 years, some schools, that might be the only healthcare professional that student athlete, patient, whatever we want to call him, that might be the only healthcare provider he's got access to or she has access to. I mean, I go back to when I did work at a public school, and this is going back quite a few years. Yeah, a whole lot. When a female student athlete came up to me and had pain in upper right quadrant. And I looked at her and didn't know what to say because that's kind of a real, back in the day, you didn't really learn much, but I had learned enough to know, well, kind of the area you're talking about and what's going on. It could be a number of things. Can you get to your doctor? And her comment was, I don't have a doctor. I don't see doctors. And when she said that, and I was standing, it was the middle of a JV football game. I can see it as clear as day. like it was yesterday. And the look on her face was, help me, please.
No.
And my jaw hit the ground. I'm like, okay, well, let's try and figure this out. And we helped. We figured out what we could on my end. Gave her a place that was a free clinic not too far away that could help her more. But you are the front line, and you're teaching that front line and that gen med, that primary care, or even going back to neuro. God, when I sat for my boards, now granted, I'm ancient. Any argument there, Victoria?
You're digging your own
Yeah,
hole
yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Well, I know you'd bring it up anyway. So I remember getting ready for my boards and sitting down with my girlfriend at the time, who then became my wife, and she was a neurospecialist in physical therapy. She looked at me and started laughing. I'm like, honey, what's so funny? She's like, what you have to know for neuro? This is nothing. You test what for a concussion? Oh God. She brought out her neuro book, threw it at me and said, you better memorize that. And I memorized this neuro book and I sat there going, I never learned that. I never learned that. Just like you said, first out of the gate, you're sitting there going, oh God, I really don't know much. You think you do, but the only thing that got me through neuro on the boards was that book. It's amazing how much we've evolved today from where we were 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I plan on doing a survey and researching all the athletic training programs to see what that looks like in their curriculums across the nation. Right now, it says in the standards that the KD standards, that we have to do something on pain and pain management. But does it really specialize anything on the whole, neuroscience field, from, the cognitive portion to the peripheral nerve activation to the autonomic nerve dysfunction? We don't have like really strict guidelines academically. So I think for a lot of programs, their neuroscience is basically a couple pain theories and that's it. We're really looking to edify that part, at least in the programs we're tied to, or I'm tied to, because it changes the way you practice. It changes your assessment, it changes your diagnosis, and it will change your intervention protocol or rehab.
But I mean, in terms of athletic trainers who are already, they've already graduated, they've already gotten certified, creating maybe like a CEU learning lab at FWATR, at CATA, where it is not just one day, because I mean, you can't learn everything in one day, but, over the course of being there, or even outside, set something up throughout the months, kind of like they do, what is it, Hoag Orthopedic? I know they do like a sports medicine thing, having something like that where we can sign up and get that learning, because I mean, we're already out, we can't go back.
I like more of the manual therapy model where they have certifications by taking multiple courses on certain areas. You could do something like that in the neuro setting as well.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of paradigms that you can use. Some of the ones that I learned over the last 4 years: total motion release, myokinesthetics, positional release therapy, primal reflex release.
So we have a PT/ATC who's a manual therapist and he's phenomenal. And I usually look at him, okay, name that voodoo. And you just named a whole bunch of them. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that, Eric? Voodoo? What do you got there? Where's the doll with the pins? Talk to me. What's going on here? I'm a huge fan of manual therapy. I truly believe in it. I mean, I started learning it after I came out because back in the day, they just didn't teach it. Huge fan of MFR, huge fan of strain counter strain and other types of therapy. But that would be fantastic to do something.
Yeah, to give a selfish plug, if you happen to be going to Anaheim in early March,
February 28th, I believe, is the
end of February,
February 28th, March 1st. Yeah, right around there. What do you
uh,
got going?
I'm hosting a workshop on Saturday, a 3-hour workshop on nervous system dysfunction and how to reset the nervous system and enhance it for more appropriate rehabilitative and strengthening exercises.
I have several high school students that need to be reset. I might have to have Joel and I there for that one.
Eli,
Yeah.
I think you need to be reset.
Hey, hey, hey. That's it. You get all the basketball games this week.
I think it's going at the same time as a point of care ultrasound session. So we're going to have competing interests. But to your point earlier, another area of great interest of mine and what I've done most of my current research and regional and national presentations is on clinically diagnostic point of care ultrasound. We're definitely not making medical diagnoses, but using it as another tool to assess trauma, damage, injury.
Another tool in the toolbox, baby. Yep, you got it.
And a lot of ATs, they see the point of care ultrasound as a cool gadget to look at muscles and tendons, but it's so much more. The area I did a little bit on musculoskeletal, and I think that's the one that you probably attended, was the introduction to musculoskeletal, the lecture I gave at FWADA last year. I also give lectures on the EFAST exam, and it's an emergency assessment using point of care ultrasound for heart, lungs, GI, all the hepatobiliary organs, spleen, but it's a real quick assessment to do for, a liver laceration, a cardiac tachycardia, or a collapsed lung, blood in the inferior part of the abdomen from trauma. Like it's for emergency settings. I would say that the EFAST exam is should be a standard in athletic training education as we continue to grow and develop contemporary practices. Here at Fresno, we're slowly looking to find monies to be able to do that and train the rest of the faculty to introduce it into our emergency care class, and to find enough point of care ultrasound devices to pull it into our primary care class and let every lab have a section of clinical diagnostics with point of care ultrasound, primarily because it's becoming more convenient. I mean, you can buy a unit for under $5,000 and use it every day in your practice. For those that are interested in point of care ultrasound, some of the things to consider is not just the device, but most of them come with softwares, and you have to pay for an annual service for the software, or by paying a little more for the probe, ultrasound probe, and not have to have a software you pay for every year. I would say that the current literature out in all other medical and healthcare careers is that point of care ultrasound is the new stethoscope, and that every healthcare profession is going to have to become competent and proficient in its usage. And I don't think AT is going to be that far behind. I think over the next 5 to 7 years, it'll be more and more incorporated into academic programs and into clinical practice.
Here at St. Francis High School, we agreed. I guess we were ahead of the curve a little bit because we picked up a Sonosite IVIZ and IVIZ by Fujifilm. I think we're going on about 6 years now. We were trained by a local primary care sports medicine physician that's known very well in the region. Works a lot with pro soccer, US soccer, US track and field, and then his clinic as well. Trained us quite a bit. Very happy with it. We're very good at I'd say the orthopedic part. I love this idea of the EFAST exam. That's something, Victoria, I think you're going to have to be focused on learning now. We're going to have to push you in that direction to figure that one out. That sounds pretty exciting.
One thing I forgot to say, it's awesome that you all have those devices at your institution, and I'd say it's abnormal. So you all are doing some great work to have that type of equipment and training. I don't know if I clarified it earlier, and I want to make sure your audience knows that I interchangeably use diagnostic and point of care. Point of care ultrasound is nothing diagnostic, and that's why athletic trainers have the privilege to use it. It's
Of
just a
course.
tool. We want to make sure we differentiate. Any of the medical diagnostic stuff is for physicians and the practitioners that are aligned with that professionally. But the point of care ultrasound is something that is super convenient and easy just to give you a bit more information for your evaluation. Those are definitely not used in our hands as a diagnostic tool. They're more for information seeking.
Another tool in the tool belt to identify the issue.
Yep. And it's awesome that you got the kind of community there at your institution where you got docs that are bringing in this information. That's what the healthcare community is supposed to be. That's what sports medicine is supposed to be, is you have a group of like-minded individuals that want enhanced or elevated patient care for, your sport athletes, your active athletes. That's rad that you already got that there.
Thanks. We're very blessed, and I'm the first one to say it, and I know it. We're very fortunate with what we're able to do in our community. It's been built over, I've been here 27 years, and when we brought Joel on 11 years ago, that just brought in more. And well, this year we brought in Victoria, so she's helping too now. Between the three of us, the program has grown. We've been able to prove our worth. And I think that's what all athletic trainers really want to do at some point, is just show our value and show our worth and help others. Because really, healthcare is a calling. It's not, you don't get in it for the money, that's for damn sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, you got to make a living, you got to pay bills, especially when you're down in Anaheim. I suppose the little one's going to go to Disneyland, and that
Yeah.
ain't cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my little ones aren't so little, and they still want to go to Disneyland. So you got to make something. We're very fortunate with what we do, and we've been able to prove our worth and our value, and having these extra tools, whether it's the iViz, the Neurocom VSR Sport for balance testing for concussions, using the gold standard for concussion testing, impact, or whatever it is. We're very fortunate here, and I'm the first one to admit it. It's been a good run, and I'd like to thank all administrators for allowing us to do what we do on any given day.
Awesome.
Elevate your knowledge, ignite your curiosity, and compete with the best minds at events hosted by the American Academic Competition Institute. AACI's sports medicine competitions feature practical exercises, challenging quizzes, specialty tests, and keynote speakers that foster knowledge and social engagement in healthcare and sports medicine. Go to aacitest.org for more information on upcoming regional and national competitions. Sign up for the ultimate intellectual showdown.
It sounds like you're setting some examples. I mean, you've always been an example for us younger folk in the profession. But for your setting, the high school setting, when I moved here to Fresno, I'm an advisor for 2 or 3 of the CTE groups here in town.
Which schools? Give them a shout.
Clovis North, Buchanan High School, and Madera High.
Oh yeah, give a shout out to their names, or the names of the athletic trainers. We just saw 2 of the 3 up in Sacramento a couple of weeks ago.
We did. Kate Call, Kelly Bittencourt,
Yep.
and Christian Galindo.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see them down here for the competition as well pretty soon. So that's always fun to see them.
Yeah, you will. Kate just emailed me last week about setting some times to go and help them prep so we can come down there and beat you all.
Oh, wow. Hey, they do pretty damn well. They don't need much help. You might want to come down and help my students. They need all the help they can get.
Yes, they do.
Thanks for the chime in, Victoria. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Funny how you choose your spots. I love that. Yep. See what I deal with daily, Chris?
It's all calculated.
Oh man, brutal.
Before we completely switch topics, and Chris, I don't mean to cut you off in case you still have a point to go with, but I wanted to talk more on collaborating, because you mentioned sports medicine. That's what it is, working with all of those, in your field, outside your field. We actually did another podcast where I cannot remember her name, but she mentioned that, they do communicate with the nurses, the EMTs, the paramedics, and kind of put yourself in my shoe type of thing, and educating each other on their fields, and, helping each other out. At Fresno State, what have you done, or what are some steps you've taken to kind of broaden your department with the PT department, or
We got nursing, we got
nursing, all those?
Well, I'm gonna take you back a little further. When I was at University of Pacific in Stockton, California, the CADE, the Commission on Accreditation of Athletic Training, said that the new standards, new proficiencies that we had to do at the time, we had to include IPE, interprofessional education. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, it wasn't part of my curriculum.
We all sat there going, what the hell is that as preceptors? I mean, let's be honest. Huh? What? Where?
Yeah.
Who?
So I was very fortunate to work with Dr. Jody Dickert. I think she's down at Cal Baptist University now. But we did some self-research, and we basically came up with the summation that it was getting to know the other professions, knowing their academic background, their clinical expertise, their knowledge that can contribute to our patient population, and how we could engage them so that the healthcare was streamlined. And it became less intimidating when we said it that way, as opposed to interprofessional education. And I think since that 2010-11 timeframe, athletic training has done a really good job of emphasizing, let's go talk to the EMT before the game. Let's go talk to the physical therapist that we're getting a lot of referrals to. Let's talk to our team physician more often about things. Let's get them to come out to the sidelines. Let's meet our orthopedic surgeon that's seeing a lot of our patients. And we're starting to build collectively as a profession this idea of it's one big team. Let's figure out how we can benefit each other and our patients. At Pacific, they had I think it's a school of health science now, but they had a PT program, a speech pathology program, a pharmacy program. So we would do engagements there. It was early on in the IPE movement for us, but we'd have a day where we'd engage with certain other tracks. And then coming here to Fresno years later, it's constant IPE. We work with our nursing. We go out and a couple years ago, we got a multi-million-dollar grant to buy 2 mobile health care units, big, beautiful medical vans. They're huge. They're not vans, they're units. And they go out, the nursing program takes these out to our community and services the homeless, the needy, the areas of socioeconomics that don't have the ability to get healthcare services. And the nursing program goes out and they let us go out to some of those events with them, but we really engage them with community physicals. So we go out, we did one just a couple months ago for Clovis Unified School District. We had 6 or 7, no, we had all of our second year students, all 15, and they had some of their nursing students, which they have a much larger cohort. So it was some of them and then a couple nurse practitioners. And we went out there and aided in the physicals for the community. And we plan on doing that more and more. They just got these units last year.
That's exciting. That's pretty cool.
If you get a chance to look those units up, they are beautiful and they're brand new. So it's a shining star. I was just at the Clovis parade this weekend, the Kiwanis Electric Parade, and my parents put a float in it. So my daughter and my niece were in it. But just behind them was the mobile healthcare unit. It was cool to see it in the parade going down the street. But we got 2 of them in the grant from one of our council or assembly members who's a physician. I don't want to say his name wrong. Dr. Ambuela, I believe. He was either assembly or Senate, one of the 2, and he helped push for this grant to get these. But we have part of it is to do homeless encampments, and it's more for the nursing students, but we're trying to navigate how we can send students into those populations. For the conversation we had earlier, that sometimes the athletic trainer is the only healthcare provider that you have in an area. When I was in Idaho, there's a lot of rural spacing. There was a little town just east of Moscow, Idaho, where I worked at University of Idaho, called Troy, Idaho. And it was a population of like 190 people, and they had a high school there. The athletic trainer was literally the only healthcare provider in a 35-minute drive. So they would see the farmer.
I understand that. Yep, I remember that. The farmer, the athlete, mom and dad,
yeah,
everybody.
Sorry if this is off topic a little bit, but we're very fortunate here. Our CATA Region 3 director, Susie Gaddis, she has created a couple community events that our students have opportunity to help with, where they go out to the migrant food farm workers, and they go out there and do workshops for them on hydration and movement and how to lift appropriately. And the athletic training students have got to see that. And I've never been in a community that's done that. So we're very fortunate here in the Valley to have, so much good IPE activities, a community that takes them in unique settings and to do things that I couldn't even have thought of something like that, but we're very fortunate to have great people around us.
Well, I'm looking at that mobile health unit right now, and that's a pretty kick butt little unit there. It's more like a semi that's been modified for healthcare.
Yeah. Yes.
Very, very neat.
all capabilities. I mean, they can do EKGs, blood tests, physical exams from gynecological all the way up through oral, cognitive assessments. I mean, they can do anything and everything for the most part, being that it's a mobile unit, but it's pretty amazing.
And one thing you said, I'm sorry, and it's very not unique to the Fresno Clovis area, but as a person that born and raised in Southern Cal, born and raised in Los Angeles, and I would travel every summer for weeks, if not a month, to the Fresno Clovis area. It is such a unique situation, not too far from the big city, and then bam, you've got rural, you've got, like you said, annual workers that come in for different seasons with the grapes, or you said earlier, you were raised on an almond farm. I thought it was almonds. What's the right way to pronounce it now?
I'm an almond guy.
You're an
Yeah.
almond guy. Okay. Okay. Because I know that's a fighting word if you say it wrong, depending on if you're from Northern California, and Northern California is not the Central Valley.
Yeah,
Northern
no.
Cal starts way past the Fresno area. That's central. But it is such a unique area because you can help so many people in such a diverse situation throughout that area.
And that's another unique thing about Fresno State is we are a Hispanic designated institution, and our student demographics here, we are very, very diverse. And that's one of the reasons I came back was the student population, the community population we have here. I was told in my faculty orientation here that there are 147 different languages spoken in Fresno County.
I believe that. I totally believe that. Yep.
And that diversity is so beautiful in that I've had to learn to adapt to so many unique and different things for people that I feel fortunate that I can engage different people with different backgrounds in a way at the graduate level education that is meaningful. And this may be a good segue into something I wanted to talk about. It probably isn't on our list, but money in athletic training is an issue. It's always something we're worried about. And I've always rode the high horse of athletic trainers should be getting starting salary of 70 grand. That's not including benefits or retirement. 70 grand is a base salary we should be at after they graduate. And that's just comparable to what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says from the US government compared to like professions with master's degrees. We're not anywhere close to that in our introductory base salaries. But if you look at the current data, we are climbing in the salary. I would contribute that, some of that being COVID, some of that being inflation, and some of that being the transition to the master's degree. But probably even more so, this idea that some of those poor paying jobs just aren't being filled.
Completely. We see at the high school level down in LA, you got those low end school, I shouldn't say low end schools, low end paying job at some of these schools. And people are going, I ain't going through that much grief and that much hell to make less than I'd make at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I think it still lands on the fact that people still don't entirely understand the importance of having an athletic trainer in the schools, and then also budgets. They don't have the budgets for it.
I call BS on that. Give me a break. Give me a break. Give me a break. Think about it this way. People don't know what a PT is. They look at a PT and say, oh, really? You're a physical therapist. Can you give me a massage? Oh, you're a doctor. You know, I got this weird thing growing right here. People don't know. They're just not educated. And that's on us to educate them, just like a PT. And I use that all the time because people find out my wife's a physical therapist and they joke, can you give me a massage? She said, yeah, you got to have a stroke first. And they look at her, or maybe a spinal cord injury. I'll pop off. Yeah, have a spinal cord injury or get shot in the spinal cord and survive. My wife's the person you want working on you. Otherwise, yeah, it ain't going to happen.
That discussion, and I think I'm not countering either point, but I'm trying to meet in the middle. Our title has affected us in different ways than a physical therapist, and there is
Preach,
some
preach, yep.
nomenclature issues that we've went through, we've assessed. The NATA's had 3 or 4 nomenclature assessments. And the last one I remember, it was not financially feasible to change the name to anything because of all the state practice acts and all the litigation it would take. It was more righteous just to educate the population and to show what we do and to put ourselves out there to the communities and let our actions speak for themselves. But there is some of that. You hear the term athletic trainer, and if you're not familiar with medicine or healthcare in general, it sounds like something that's more in the fitness world. So I understand the point of we don't have enough exposure, or the name just sounds like it's not a healthcare provider. But to Eli's point, we have to be the advocates for that. We have to continue to push. The name's not going to change, at least not in my lifetime or my professional career. It won't. They've done the research on it. They paid millions of dollars to assess if we could change it. But we need to do the work to promote ourselves.
I was going to say, one of the big sticking points that really shoved us into the limelight was a guest just the other day talking about Damar Hamlin. I mean, I can honestly say when you have these big situations that happen on Monday Night Football in front of everybody, and they can see the fear in everybody's face and what they went through to save his life, and thank God it worked out the way it did. That was the first time the following week I had a parent come up to a high school and look at me and say, "Mr. Halleck, do we have an athletic trainer on staff?" Now, first, I was disappointed in myself because obviously I hadn't let that person know, "Hey, I'm the head athletic trainer." But hey, after 27 years, okay, I've been called a lot of things, so I'll take it. I'll educate again. And I said, "Yes, we do. We actually have 2 here at St. Francis. I'm the head athletic trainer, and Mr. Dorning is our other one, because they just see us as part of the staff, and we take care of people. So every now and then, even though they have them, we have to say, 'Hey, we're right here.'" But at the same time, that was the first time in my career someone walked up, "Do we have an athletic trainer on site?" I had goosebumps. I was excited. I didn't know what to say at first, which I'm sure Victoria would love to see that day, but that's a different story all to it.
Maybe one day.
Awesome is not the right word. The sad thing is, at least what I've seen in our profession, is it takes something monumental or tragic for some awareness or some promotion with the bureaucracy that we see in our society. I mean, we go back to, I was looking it up right now, late 80s, early 90s. I mean, Hank Gathers, he died on a basketball court, and
I remember that vividly. Yeah.
so we've had athlete death, and you can look at the stats, and every year we have multiple, hundreds of athletes dying, that most of it from preventable stuff. If we had a thorough PPE, pre-participation exam, we could have caught some of this stuff, or having the appropriate practitioner out, in bad weather and training. It's really unfortunate. It takes something that monumental and tragic to help us find an awareness, because we could have made a bigger difference. I mean, the Damar Hamlin thing, that was impressive, to do the 8 or 9 minutes of CPR.
Well, and at the same time, it goes back to working as a team. Everybody that came from all over the sideline. Big medical timeout at the beginning of the game. I mean, they had 70 some odd individuals.
Yeah.
All collapse to assist. Just amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably expect that at the professional level, but why not at the local public high schools? Why not have that same level of care? And I think the athletic trainer is the key to setting up that type of environment, to make sure that you have the best possible care for your student athletes, and building that team around the athletic trainer to save the life of the 14-year-old freshman high school athlete that has something similar.
And
So
I'm going to circle back to something that Victoria had said about, budgetary constraints. Hey, I know my salary. I know your salary. I don't know Chris's salary, but I have a feeling our salary is a lot cheaper than one lawsuit.
Oh,
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, that's the way I look at it. early in my career, I sat down with an administrator who didn't really want the athletic trainer there, and I was being sent out from a clinic. And his response, and he was a vice principal, he looked at our director and said, "Well, why should we have him here?" Her response was, "He's your insurance policy. He's sitting there waiting to help. Just like your state farm bill every month, you're paying it, hoping to never use it." That's
Yeah.
me. That's
Yeah.
you.
That's a big reason why these large corporations are hiring ATs, is it reduces their work comp insurance. And I think a lot of them are starting to see the benefits and the outpatient outcomes that are beneficial, that they're utilizing them in greater and greater roles as we move forward. But insurance is a big issue that, again, it's unfortunate that it takes something like that to recognize the true value that an athletic trainer might bring. But in the business world, the bureaucracy of healthcare, it's going to take those type of conversations, especially for those that are looking to create an athletic training position at an institution, or to mobilize their self financially or through titles or whatever it is. You know, insurance is a major factor when it comes to employment for a lot of settings. So your point of saving one lawsuit, you're probably saving one every 6 months if you're a full-time athletic trainer.
And at the high school setting, you're also decreasing the amount of insurance payouts by the school for secondary insurance when they're sending the kids to a clinic, or when they're sending them to PT or to a physician or to urgent care.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just California that all the student athletes have to have primary care, or if it's nationwide. Do you know?
When you say primary care, as in,
Sorry, I misspoke. That they have primary insurance, and then the school districts pick up secondary. Is that a California thing, or is that a nationwide thing?
so I know in California, or at least I shouldn't say California, I know in the LA County area, LA Unified and other school districts locally, you must have some type of primary insurance. If not, they have a supplemental that will take over. Now, in our location, we don't ask about primary insurance. We just assume you have it. And if you don't, we have a secondary policy in case something does happen to our student athletes. I'm not sure if it's a nationwide thing. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the your guys' national organization for the high schools, the interscholastic.
NFHS,
Oh, yeah.
National Federation of High Schools.
I'll look that up. I teach our admin class in the spring, so I'm gonna have to know that answer.
Well, you got a few months to get that answer out then.
It's the same at the all NCAA level sports. They have to come in with primary insurance if they can't afford it. There's supplemental that the institutions can offer them. Yeah, I would imagine everything you said lowers all those costs, because we're not referring to an urgent care every injury. We're not referring to an ER for something that didn't need to go. You know, we're skipping the primary care and getting them to the cardiologist, or getting them to the ENT specialist for things, and, you know, saving some visits by being an appropriate referrer. ATs are just rad. We do everything we do is great.
I'm going to quote you later today.
Okay.
I'm using that quote. Athletic trainers are great. We're rad.
Yeah, I don't know where
Victoria's-
Rad came from, but the last 6 months, maybe year, Rad has been my go-to. I think I'm, you know, maybe hit my head or something, and going back to the 80s, and
Hey. Some of us are still in the 80s mentally, okay? Calm down there, hero. Victoria has no comment. I appreciate that, Victoria.
I took enough takes on this podcast. Save it for the next one.
You had enough? Really? You feeling okay?
Well, you still have the rest of the day with me, so.
That's true. I've got a few more hours. I'm sure there'll be one or two E2 Brute moments. So we'll only ask a couple more questions, because we really haven't asked many. We just kind of roll with it. It's kind of like having a cup of coffee with a friend, and or whiskey, depending on the day, and just talking about what we do in our profession and what we love to do. And because really, it is something we love to do. We do love taking care of others and helping them find their way, whether it's educationally or healthcare or professionally. So I'm gonna step back, let Victoria jump in first.
Or you start yapping.
Yee-hee.
I always like to ask this. How do you manage your work-life balance, especially at the university level, as an educator and then as an athletic trainer? Like if you would combine the two, if you had that experience and then separate them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to answer them together, I think there's a culture that has to be formed that values our outside lives. And if you work for a place, an institution of business that doesn't have that culture that values you're a human, you have your own life, you have your own family, then that's going to hurt you in the long run. I've been fairly fortunate to work in places that there was some value in you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a son, and the holidays are the holidays, and we worked really hard to try and give people time away. But being a dual appointment like I was early on in my career, I still didn't have a good balance. Athletics wanted 100% of the 40% I was paid for. Academics wanted 100% of the 60% I was paid for. And I struggled with that. The post-professional weight gain happened. I had a little bit of hair when I started.
I remember you had some good hair there, buddy. I remember that.
And lifestyle changed, and it was because I was an early professional who didn't know how to navigate those things appropriately. And even here at the graduate level, talking to our students about work-life balance and trying to help them navigate it, it's good to have an idea about it, but a lot of it is you got to find your self-worth and you got to be able to say no. And that, in some people, takes time. For me, it came at year 5 when I had to make a choice between clinical athletic training or academics. And I would say the work-life balance is a big reason that I moved into the academia. Financial stability, and I still got to do AT, and I got to have a balance of my schedule. And probably the reason I stayed in academics, I mean, I still put in 50, 60 hours a week like a traditional athletic trainer, but I can do some of it from home, or I can do it at lunchtime. Having kids now, I have a 18-year-old about to be 19 and a 11-year-old just turned 11.
Whoa. She's 11?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So the preteen stuff is, whew.
Oh, my
Good
heart goes out
luck.
to you with that one. Yeah. Oof,
Mhm.
I remember. I love
The
you girls if you're listening, okay? Just in case my girls are, which never happens, but just in case.
the 18-year-old daughter, she raised me through that. So having 2 girls, I'm got a little bit of experience, but I'm still not ready for it again. But they became a priority to me. And there was a couple points in my career where I thought about, okay, maybe if I can't learn to balance this and I can't financially make it work, I need to find something else. And those were sincere asks of myself. Can I make this work and still be a part of the profession I want to be? Can I balance my finances, and can I, find other revenue generating areas? And there was a lot of soul searching and a lot of conversations with mentors and my parents. But I'm at a point now where, my priorities are I have a really cool job. I get to do cool stuff. It's at a pretty set schedule for the most part. And I can leave on, like, my little one, or little, she's 11. She gets out at 1:15 on Wednesdays. I leave at 12:30. I pick her up. I go home and work from home. The young me wouldn't have known this is where I wanted to be, because I wanted to be a Division I clinical athletic trainer. But life has navigated me to a point where, the work-life balance is a priority for me for employment. And it wasn't an easy find. So for those people that are struggling with the work-life balance, or, trying to prioritize it, it may take a few years to learn yourself and your priorities. But, set goals, write them down, and start picking them off one at a time.
Be open, advocate for yourself, and say
Yep.
no. Eli's favorite word.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, my favorite word. You know what? Really, you nailed what I was going to ask. So I think you're out of here, buddy. I think you're safe. How about this? Any final words to those students thinking about going into the profession?
It's all about going in with the mind of development. And even if you come in with a couple years of high school observation or high school skill training or junior college, coming into a graduate level education program, you got to look at it through a lens of, I don't know what I don't know yet, and I need to develop the things that I already know. And there's an algorithm that I put out at every place I work at. And I don't know if people buy into this algorithm, but as a student in our program, you should see yourself progressing. And the way I like to tell students who are coming into the athletic training profession, you progress from an observer who sees and listens and asks questions to an apprentice who gets to do some cool things with a lot of guidance. And then you develop into a technician where you're starting to do things by yourself, but with peripheral supervision, all in hopes of developing a practitionership. So you're going from observer to apprentice to technician to a practitioner. And it's all about development, scaffolding your learning, climbing a ladder one step at a time. You're not going to know it all at once, and you're not going to know it all even when you graduate. You're probably going to know less once you pass your boards than you thought you did before you took your boards.
Love that. So true.
And to end my portion of this, I have a quote that I put on social media all the time, and I live by it. I'm always learning. I'm mid-40s, and I learn more now than I did at 24. If you can keep in mind that development is something that takes effort and work, and you can buy into the always learning phrase, your academic progress will be so much easier. And for the clinicians listening, same idea. Continue to develop, always be open to learning, and don't worry about being a master of anything. Just keep learning.
Words to live by right there. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Chris, thank you, Dr. Ludwig. Haven't said that yet. Dr. Ludwig, thanks for being part of our podcast today. I really appreciate the time you spent with us talking. Couldn't have been more fun. I appreciate it. Victoria looked at me and go, okay, this one's going to be fun. I'm like, yep, promise. This is going to be an easy, fun one. And
I heard the last one. I heard the last one was pretty good with Shelby Jane.
You know what? That was pretty good. That Shelby hadn't come out yet. We interviewed her just a week ago. She gave you a little shout out. So when she realized I knew you, she's like, you got to be kidding me. Nope, not at all. So that was fun. I look forward to seeing you in end of February, beginning of March, if not sooner. And thank you for being part of our podcast today. You have a great day. Enjoy your little one while she's still little. And we'll see you next time, okay?
Yeah, thank you all. I had a great time.
Thanks for being on Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. Appreciate you, Chris, Victoria. Love it. This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want to make sure you hear every episode? Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast. Don't forget to share our podcast with your colleagues, family, and friends. Your support will help more people find and enjoy our content. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is directed by Eli Hallett. It is produced by Gabriel Hallett. Our theme music is by Coma Studios via Pixabay. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the contributors. Want to know more about us? Visit us at wrapituppodcast.com. That's with one P, wrapituppodcast.com. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is a production of Hallett Consulting, LLC.